I need you to tell me if Netflix ever did this to you too, because I'm starting to think I didn't just imagine what happened that night. I've been replaying it over and over, trying to convince myself it was a glitch, some stupid recommendation error, or a B-test gone wrong. But every time I try to explain it out loud, the room feels colder, like the memory itself is pushing back. And before I say anything else, I should warn you. Sometimes just hearing about this makes the same thing appear on other people's accounts. I don't know why. Maybe it listens for interest. Maybe it spreads through attention. Or maybe I'm just unlucky. It started after a completely normal night. Seriously, nothing special. I wasn't doing anything weird or searching anything creepy. I was just sitting on my couch, finishing the last episode of a comfort show I've watched 1,000 times. The kind of show you put on because silence feels too heavy. I remember scrolling on my phone, half watching the credits. The glow of the TV flickering against the walls in that soft, warm way that always makes my apartment feel smaller but safer. That sense of safety didn't last. When the credits ended, Netflix did its usual thing. The screen dimmed, the autoplay bar slid in, and for a second everything looked exactly how it always does. But then the interface froze. Not crashed. Froze, like it was waiting for something. Then the entire screen blinked to black. Not a fade. Not a transition. A blink. Sharp, quick, deliberate. And when it came back, there was a new item in my continue watching row. A show I'd never clicked on. A title I'd never heard of. And a thumbnail that made my stomach tighten before my brain even processed why. I swear it looked like my living room. Not a perfect match, but close enough that the recognition hit me in this strange, uneasy way, like hearing your name whispered in a crowd. The title said, The Visitor Episode 0. The description box was blank. The runtime was blank. Even the little age rating badge was missing. I should have backed out. I should have turned off the TV right then. But curiosity has always been my worst habit, and something about that thumbnail felt like a dare. Like someone wanted to see if I'd look closer. And the truth is, that tiny moment, that single decision to lean forward instead of walking away, is the reason I'm even telling this story now. Because whatever that episode was, whatever it did to my account, it didn't stop there. My TV hasn't felt the same. My apartment hasn't felt the same. And if it shows up for you after hearing this, don't panic right away. Just know that I didn't tell this to scare you, only to warn you that something strange may be listening tonight. I should have turned off the TV when the thumbnail appeared. But curiosity always wins. Most nights in my apartment look exactly the same, and honestly, that's the way I like it. Predictable, quiet, safe. I come home tired from work. Just the usual exhaustion that comes from dealing with people who think urgent means I forgot to plan. I always tell myself I'll be productive when I get home, maybe clean or cook something real, but the second the door shuts behind me, all motivation dissolves. I end up grabbing leftovers, kicking off my shoes, and collapsing onto the couch like I'm reenacting a dramatic fainting scene nobody asked for. My routine is embarrassingly simple. Netflix on, volume low, lights dim, phone in hand. I scroll every app I've already scrolled 3 times that day. Nothing new, nothing surprising. Just the comfortable background noise of a familiar show that doesn't demand emotional investment. I like having it play while I half watch and half exist. The kind of vibe where your brain goes, yeah, I can rest now. I remember that night so clearly because absolutely nothing about it stood out at first. That's what makes what happened later feel so wrong. I wasn't in a spooky mood, I wasn't watching horror, and I wasn't thinking about anything paranormal. I was literally Googling why my microwave keeps resetting its clock. That's the level of excitement we're talking about. I'm telling you this so you understand. Nothing about the setup should have invited weirdness. Around midnight, I let an episode run in the background while I zoned out. When it ended, Netflix did the usual fade, the little shrink animation, and the autoplay suggestion loading underneath. Everything routine, everything normal. Then, mid-refresh, the screen glitched, not dramatically, but subtly. A tiny flicker, almost like the brightness dipped for a second. I only noticed because my eyes were at that tired but awake stage where every little movement feels strangely amplified. The interface froze, then blinked, then reloaded, and when it did, something new was sitting in my continue watching row. A title I'd never seen before, The Visitor Episode 0. First, I thought Netflix was testing some new show, or maybe I walked away one day and accidentally clicked a pilot. But the thumbnail, God, that thumbnail. It didn't look like a show poster. It was a grainy, static-filled image with shapes that were just clear enough to unsettle me. The layout of the furniture, the angle of the walls, the soft lamp glow on the right side. It looked almost exactly like my living room. Blurriness made it worse, like it wanted me to recognize it without giving me the satisfaction of certainty. I swear, the longer I stared, the more convinced I became that the picture was taken from the corner near my bookshelf. And listen, if this has ever happened to any of you, tell me. Because Reddit didn't help. I searched everywhere for this show, this thumbnail, this title, nothing. No wiki, no fan post, no outrage thread about Netflix sneaking in creepy experimental content. The thumbnail just sat there, waiting like it knew I'd eventually click it. And I did. But only because I wanted to screenshot it for my friend. The moment I clicked the thumbnail, the screen went black for a breath too long. Long enough for me to wonder if the TV had crashed. Then the picture faded in, slowly, like old tape warming up, and I froze. It wasn't a show. It wasn't even close. It was my living room. Not exactly, but close enough to trigger that instinctive jolt of recognition you feel when someone whispers your name in a crowded place. The angles were off, the furniture looked older, and the colors had this washed-out tint, like the room had been drained of warmth. For a moment, I convinced myself it was coincidence. Maybe the set designer for this mystery show liked the same style of shelves. Maybe the lamp in the corner was a common model. But then the camera panned left, and my heart stumbled. The framed picture above the sofa, the one the camera lingered on, matched a photo from my childhood almost perfectly. Same pose, same setting, same awkward smile I've spent years trying to forget. The only difference was the faces. They were blurred, not censored, like someone had dragged their finger across wet paint. That was when the figure walked into the frame. I didn't hear footsteps, didn't get any warning. He just appeared from the hallway as if the scene had been waiting for him. At first, I thought he was an actor who vaguely resembled me, but the more I looked, the more wrong it felt. His height, his build, the way he carried his shoulders, it all matched too well. Yet his face, it was like someone tried to recreate me from memory and botched the final step. Features recognizable, but smudged at the edges. He moved stiffly, as if directed by someone unfamiliar with human rhythm. When he spoke, the audio crackled, carrying this unnatural clarity that made my skin crawl. "You always leave the lights on," he said, in a tone that didn't sound like acting. The delivery was flat, almost observational, the way someone comments on a habit they've watched for years. I tried pausing the episode, but nothing happened. The remote gave its little click, but the interface didn't respond. Netflix wasn't frozen, just ignoring me, like it had somewhere else it wanted the scene to go. I backed out of the app, or at least I tried to. The exit animation didn't even attempt to play. Every button on the remote clicked uselessly, and the fake version of me kept moving around my not-quite living room, touching objects that looked disturbingly like mine but aged, worn, as if they'd lived longer than they should have. He picked up a book that mirrored one on my coffee table. He sat in a chair shaped exactly like mine but upholstered in some muted, outdated pattern. And then he said another line, still in that strange, scripted but personal way. "You never fixed the loose hinge." My breath hitched. That hinge had been bothering me for months, creaking just enough to be annoying but not enough to justify the effort of repairs. There was no way a random show could know that. The figure didn't seem to be addressing anyone else in the room. He wasn't talking to an off-screen character or reading from a script. The pacing of his lines matched the calm tone of the Netflix interface still visible in the corner of the screen. A quiet, steady contrast to the panic starting to rise in my chest. I tried powering off the TV, but even that didn't work. The power button clicked, but the picture remained, the fake version of me still pacing through the uncanny imitation of my home. I stepped closer to the screen without meaning to, drawn by something I couldn't explain, like a tug behind my ribs. The camera angle subtly shifted, following his movements with an awareness that felt wrong for a pre-recorded show. That was when he paused. Not in the loose, improvisational way actors sometimes do, but in a sharp, intentional halt, as if he'd reached the moment he'd been waiting for. Slowly, mechanically, he turned toward the camera, toward me, as if he knew I was watching. I felt my whole body freeze. At first, I thought the double was just delivering more of those stiff, uncanny lines, generic filler dialogue, the kind you hear in low-budget pilots that never make it past the first round of testing. He walked from one side of the room to the other, speaking in that same oddly crisp tone, like his voice was recorded in a separate place entirely. "You always let things pile up," he muttered, tracing a finger along a dustless shelf. "You never finish what you start." It sounded scripted, vague enough to apply to anyone. But then the room behind him changed. Not dramatically, not all at once. It was more like watching someone adjust a painting by half an inch each time you blinked. The color of the walls darkened. The lamp's shade shifted shape. The framed picture above the sofa slid an imperceptible inch to the right. If I hadn't been staring so intensely, I might have missed it. Then the double paused beside the hallway door. The real one in my apartment squeaks when you close it too quickly, and the version on screen looked like it had been repaired decades ago. His head tilted, like he was listening to something far away, and his next line shattered any illusion that this was a coincidence. "Do you remember?" he said softly. "The summer you lied about being fine? When you stayed in your room for 2 days and pretended you weren't crying?" I felt my whole body tighten. That wasn't a vague guess. That wasn't something Netflix could scrape from a data profile. That was something only a handful of people in my life ever knew, and none of them would have fed it to some experimental horror algorithm. Before I could react, the camera cut, abrupt, unnatural, and the background behind him shifted again. The shelf was now missing a book. The couch cushions were thinner. The walls were blotchy, like water damage had seeped through them over time. I leaned in, squinting. Numbers appeared faintly on the wall behind him. 317. Barely visible, like they'd been rubbed off hastily. And on the coffee table was a small object I recognized only because of how absurdly out of place it was. A little brass key. I don't own anything like that, but it appeared again in the next cut. And the next, always sitting somewhere, always visible. I didn't know whether it was a symbol, a warning, or just something meant to keep me watching, but I felt this creeping certainty that it wasn't random. None of it was random. The room behind him was becoming older, like I was watching a place decay in real time. Then the double looked toward the camera again, more directly than before, and he didn't blink. His voice softened, like he was sharing a secret no one else was supposed to hear. "You shouldn't have kept that letter," he whispered. My stomach dropped. There was only one letter he could mean, one I'd shoved in a drawer years ago and avoided reading since. Another cut, another shift. This time the door behind him was cracked open, darkness spilling from it like ink. He didn't look at it. He didn't seem to notice it at all. Instead, he stepped closer to the camera, close enough that his blurred face began to distort, the pixels smearing like someone had dragged his features in opposite directions. "You're still doing it," he murmured. I found myself whispering, "Doing what?" Even though I wasn't expecting an answer, he gave one. Leaving the door unlocked. My heart stopped, because I had. That night, in my rush to flop on the couch and scroll until my brain dissolved, I never turned the deadbolt. I hadn't mentioned it to anyone. The double's head tilted further, almost curious. "Why did you leave it unlocked?" he asked, voice low, almost disappointed. I backed away from the TV. Every instinct in me screamed to turn it off, unplug it, break it, anything. I grabbed the remote and hit the power button over and over, but nothing changed. The double kept talking, offering lines that weren't lines anymore. Fragments from my past, old secrets, forgotten mistakes, things I hadn't thought about in years. The environment behind him continued its steady, sickening transformation. The numbers on the wall repeated 317, 317, 317. The brass key glinted in every shot. A pattern was forming, but I was too panicked to decode it. I know this sounds insane, but I swear the episode was adjusting as I watched it, reacting, choosing things. And if any of you have ever seen something like these so-called behavioral targeted horror ads, please say something in the comments, because I'm starting to think this wasn't a glitch. It was personalized in a way nothing should be. Finally, I snapped. I stepped forward, reached behind the TV, and yanked the power cord from the wall. Sparks jumped. The room went dark. The screen went black. But the episode didn't stop. Against the dead screen, no glow, no signal, no input, the faint image of the double flickered back into view. A ghost of the scene, like an afterburn burned too deep into the LCD to fade. He lifted his head. The episode kept playing on the black screen. When the image finally vanished from the powerless screen, I stood there trying to convince myself I'd imagined it, that the leftover glow in my eyes had tricked me. But then the speakers crackled, soft at first, like static brushing against fabric, and a voice slipped through. Not the distorted, uncanny tone of the double. This was familiar, too familiar. It sounded like my mother. Not the way she sounds now, but the way she did when I was a kid, when she used to call me in from the backyard at dusk. "Come inside," the voice whispered, grainy and distant, like it had been dragged through a tunnel. Another voice overlapped it before I could react. My old friend Daniel, laughing, a sound I hadn't heard in years, not since we drifted apart for reasons we never said out loud. The laugh was clipped, as if someone had taken a tiny fragment of a memory and looped it until it frayed. Then came a third voice, my high school teacher, reciting something I'd forgotten I'd ever heard. Lines I must have tuned out years ago. They layered together, merging and separating, forming this scrambled chorus of people who shouldn't be speaking through a dead television. I pressed my palm against the blank screen, half expecting to feel vibration humming beneath the surface, but it stayed cold. The audio wasn't coming from the TV signal. It was leaking from somewhere else, creeping into the speakers like water through old pipes. The voices were out of order, chopped, stitched together like someone was testing combinations. My mother's voice overlapped with Daniel's laugh. My teacher's lecture wound beneath them like a forgotten soundtrack. A fourth voice whispered something I couldn't make out, then repeated it clearer, as if adjusting for my attention. "Why did you look away?" I stumbled back. That wasn't a memory. That wasn't anyone from my life. That was new. The voices faded for a moment, giving me the illusion of silence, and then surged again with increased clarity. They weren't random. They were selecting, curating, like something was rummaging through every echo of my past it could find. I grabbed my phone and hit record, holding the microphone directly to the speaker. The audio kept playing, those overlapping, repurposed fragments, but the waveform on my phone remained flat. Nothing. I tried again. Same result. The phone simply refused to acknowledge what I was hearing, as if the voices existed only for me. And I know how this sounds, but this isn't the first time I've heard of something like this. Some of you who've watched my previous stories might remember when I mentioned those cases. The ones I couldn't talk about in detail because I wasn't sure they were connected. Platforms glitching in ways they shouldn't. Apps playing audio after being force closed. Videos showing up that no one uploaded. I wasn't certain then, but hearing these voices made the pattern impossible to ignore. This is the third time I've heard of a platform doing this. And every time, people swear it isn't the service itself. Not Netflix, not YouTube, not Spotify. Something else is piggybacking on them, slipping into the cracks where the algorithm and interface overlap. Using familiar platforms like doorways, borrowing their shapes, wearing them like masks. The voices continued to twist and reorganize, almost impatient now. My mother's call, Daniel's laugh, that whisper asking why I looked away. Then something new threaded its way through the others. A low, rhythmic pulse that felt more like breathing than sound. The closer I leaned, the more certain I became that whatever was speaking wasn't replaying memories. It was studying them, testing reactions, learning what I feared. I stepped toward the door, suddenly hyper-aware that I'd left it unlocked earlier. The voices hissed a final line, all in different tones but perfectly synchronized. "You're not alone." And then, a knock, sharp, sudden, too close to be a coincidence. The knock didn't just scare me. It cut straight through the overlapping whispers still leaking out of my TV's dead speakers. For a second, I couldn't move. I thought it was part of the episode. But then it came again, louder this time, impatient. I opened the door just a crack and nearly jumped. It was my neighbor, one of the only people on my floor I actually talked to. He looked pale, confused, and way more freaked out than me. "Hey, is your Wi-Fi acting weird?" he asked, rubbing the back of his neck. My Netflix just did something strange. First, I almost laughed. Maybe this was a relief. Maybe my brain wasn't melting. But then he said, "I saw your face." Everything inside me froze. I stepped aside and motioned him in. The moment he entered, he glanced at my TV like he expected it to jump at him. I asked him to explain exactly what he saw. He swallowed hard before talking. It wasn't a show. It wasn't even a video. It just started like my screen got hijacked. And the person on it, it looked like you, but not right. The eyes were wrong. Those words hit me in the stomach because that was exactly how I described the double in my own episode. But here's where it gets worse. We didn't see the same thing. He described a hallway I'd never lived in. A different room, different objects, different errors. Almost like the thing, whatever it was, generated a custom version for him. But both of our episodes included the same sentence. Episode 0 is always about you. Hearing it from his mouth made my skin crawl. It wasn't random. It wasn't a glitch. And it definitely wasn't a coincidence. The more he talked, the more it felt like this thing was spreading. Not like a virus, but like a signal. Picking people, adapting to them, rewriting itself every time. He asked if I recorded anything. I told him the truth. I tried. My phone didn't capture a single second. His face went blank. "Mine too," he whispered. "Audio, video, nothing. It's like it wasn't even there." That sentence sat between us like cold air. We both knew what it meant. Something didn't want to be documented. For a moment, neither of us said anything. Just the hum of my refrigerator in the distance. No voices, no static, no episode leaking through the speakers. The silence felt worse than the noise. He finally pointed at my TV. "Is it still doing it?" I didn't want to check. Every part of me was screaming not to, but I needed to know, needed to see if I was still trapped in this nightmare. So I grabbed the remote, stepped closer, and turned the TV back on. Netflix loaded. Nothing weird, nothing glitchy, just the normal home screen, quiet, calm, bright. For half a second, I let out a breath. Then the page refreshed. A new thumbnail slid into the top row like it had been waiting for me. Episode 1 Live. It had no description, no runtime, no season or series name, just those words. Live. I stepped back instinctively. My neighbor muttered, No, dude, don't open it." But I already knew I would. Because the thumbnail wasn't a location this time. It wasn't my house. It wasn't his either. It was my door. The exact angle we had just seen when I opened it minutes ago. And the timestamp said, "Streaming now." When I clicked on episode 1, Live, I didn't expect it to load instantly. No buffering, no countdown, just boom, a video already in progress. At first, the frame didn't make sense. The angle was too low, too tilted, like the camera was lying on its side. There was a faint scraping noise, like someone shifting their weight on the floor. Then my stomach dropped. It was my hallway, my actual hallway, right outside my apartment door. Same paint chips, same crooked shoe rack, same dim bulb I kept meaning to replace. The shot wasn't wide or cinematic. Felt handheld, shaky, too close to the ground, like whoever was filming was crouched low or crawling. My neighbor whispered behind me, "No way, that's live, dude. That's right now." I should have turned the TV off, unplugged the whole thing, but I didn't move because the camera wasn't steady. It was breathing, a soft inhale, a deeper exhale, slow enough to fog the bottom corner of the lens. I stepped forward instinctively, just a few inches. On screen, half a second later, the view shifted, a micro delay, like a live stream running a fraction behind reality. Not a pre-recorded feed, not a glitch, a mirror someone else was holding. I took another step forward. Again, the camera on screen adjusted a beat later, jerking slightly like whoever was filming wasn't expecting me to move so fast. My neighbor tugged my arm. "Lock your door. Now." But part of me needed proof. I needed to believe it wasn't real. So I did the stupidest thing possible. I walked to my front door, pressed my eye to the peephole, and held my breath. Nothing. A quiet hallway. Empty. Still. Completely normal. But on screen, the camera suddenly crawled closer to my door. Not walking. Crawling. Dragging. The scraping sound got louder. The breathing got sharper. My neighbor backed away until his back hit the wall. "Dude, if someone's out there, call the police." But that was the problem. Nobody was out there. I opened my door just a crack, just enough to look. The hallway was empty. The same emptiness I'd looked at through the peephole. No movement, no shadows, no one. Yet the live feed still showed the camera creeping forward, inching closer to my door like a hungry animal. That's when something clicked in my head. I'd heard of this before. Weeks ago, buried in some late-night rabbit hole, I read about an old ghost livestream case, where the delay wasn't caused by internet lag, but by whatever was copying the environment struggling to keep up. The pattern of movement delays, the micro-reactions, the breathing audio that didn't match human cadence. This was the same thing. I closed the door slowly, quietly, like maybe the feed could hear me. When I turned back to the TV, the camera had stopped moving. It wasn't advancing. It wasn't breathing. It wasn't even shaking. It was waiting. The angle tilted up just slightly, as if the person holding the camera had finally lifted their head. The screen went black for a single blink. Then a new shot appeared. Not the hallway, not the door. A room, my room. And in the center of the frame was me, sleeping. The lighting was soft, like moonlight. The angle was inches from my face. Whoever or whatever filmed it had been standing right beside my bed. I felt a wave of nausea roll up my throat. I had never recorded myself sleeping. I had never posted anything like that. I had never streamed from my bedroom. There was no way it had footage like this, but it did. The feed froze on that final frame, flickering like old tape. My neighbor whispered, barely audible, When was that taken?" I couldn't answer, because the truth hit me in a way I didn't want to admit. I had slept in that exact position last night, and I didn't sleep with my bedroom door open. The frozen frame of me sleeping didn't fade immediately. It wavered, pulsed, like the TV was struggling to hold the image without slipping into static. I couldn't move. My neighbor kept whispering my name, but it sounded far away, like he was calling from underwater. All I could focus on was the impossible angle of that shot. Whoever filmed it had been standing so close, they must have been breathing the same air I was. Then the frame dissolved into black. For a few seconds, there was nothing, no audio, no UI, not even the usual red Netflix progress bar. Just an empty screen that felt like it was waiting for me to understand something on my own. And I did, because this wasn't a show. It never was. Episode 0 hadn't been horror. It had been a reconstruction, a curated timeline of everything that could make me drop my guard. My childhood memories, my old rooms, my family photos. Whatever was behind this episode didn't need to scare me immediately. It needed me to recognize myself. It needed me to feel seen. Episode 1 had shown my present. Not metaphorically, literally. The hallway outside my apartment. The way I walked toward the screen. The camera reacting to my movements like it was tied to my breath. And then the final frame. Me asleep, vulnerable, unaware. Hit me in a slow, sickening wave. This thing wasn't observing for entertainment. It was preparing material. Netflix wasn't involved. None of the UI elements matched. None of the audio cues lined up. The platform was just a doorway something else had slipped through. A recording device disguised as a streaming service. My neighbor must have figured out the same thing because he took a step back and whispered, "So, if episode 0 is your past, and episode 1 is now, then what's episode 2 supposed to be?" I didn't have to answer. The TV did it for me. White text flickered onto the center of the screen. No sound, no transition, no animation. Just a blunt message that felt like someone had typed it in a hurry. Ready for recording? Not play. Not continue. Not even start episode 2. Just a question. A question meant for me. I felt my throat tighten. My pulse thudded so loudly I could hear it in my ears. The TV was no longer showing anything. It was asking permission. Asking to begin capturing whatever came next. My next movements. My next conversations. My next night's sleep. Maybe my next mistake. My neighbor stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Don't answer it. Don't touch anything. If it's waiting for input, don't give it any." I nodded, even though I couldn't look away from the screen. This wasn't a passive viewing experience. I wasn't the audience. I was the data source. The realization came with an almost physical weight. Episode 2 wasn't missing. It wasn't unfinished. Simply hadn't been filmed yet. It was supposed to be filmed now. A sick thought crept into my mind. The kind you don't want to acknowledge but can't ignore. What if episode 0 and episode 1 weren't the show? What if they were just the calibration process? A way for whatever's behind this thing to build an accurate model of me? I backed away from the TV slowly, making sure not to say anything out loud. I didn't know if it could hear me. I didn't know if declining would even make a difference. But I knew one thing. I needed to warn people before anything else rendered. I grabbed my phone and hit record. "I'm uploading this before episode 2 finishes generating," I whispered. "If you're watching, please be careful what you click, because if episode 2 is personalized the way the others were, then who knows what yours will show, or what it'll take to make it. If you've made it this far, I need you to listen carefully, really carefully, because this is the part people always ignore in horror stories. This is where the narrator begs, 'Don't do what I did,' and the comments fill with jokes about doing it anyway. Please don't be that person. I'm calm right now, calmer than I should be after everything that happened, but maybe that's why you'll actually hear me. Maybe the fear burned itself out, and what's left is just a kind of numb clarity. Maybe that's what happens when you realize you weren't watching a show. You were being profiled by something that shouldn't exist. So here's the warning, as plainly as I can say it. If you ever see a thumbnail called Episode 0, or The Visitor, or anything that looks like your home, even a little bit, do not click it. Do not hover over it. Do not even stop scrolling long enough for the preview to load. Because once it does, it means it already recognized you. I don't care if it shows up on Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, YouTube, your smart fridge screen, whatever. If you see that warp static thumbnail, if you see anything that looks too familiar, too close, too reflective of your life, just turn the screen off. A lot of people online love to brag about being unbothered by horror. Nothing scares me. I sleep to creepypastas. I watch analog horror compilations at 3 a.m. I get it. I used to be like that too. I thought fear was just entertainment, a genre. But this thing isn't a genre. It isn't a story. It isn't curated or produced or edited by anyone human. It's a lens, one that points in only one direction, at you. If you've experienced anything like this, strange thumbnails, episodes that shouldn't exist, autoplay that starts on its own, rewinds that don't match what you watched, please tell me in the comments. Don't keep it to yourself. I've heard from at least 3 other people that platforms have started doing this, and every time the pattern changes just enough to look like a coincidence. But it isn't. I know some of you are probably wondering if I'm exaggerating, or if this is just another urban legend. Honestly, I wish it were. I wish I could brush this off as a glitch or some marketing test or a corrupted UI element. I even joked about it earlier today, today before everything escalated. And now I'm sitting here talking to you like some unhinged PSA. I don't care how it sounds. I'm telling you what I saw, and I'm telling you what the TV showed me last. See, after that message, ready for recording? The screen flickered a few more times. My neighbor kept insisting we should unplug everything, shut down the power, do anything to force it off, but I didn't move. Not because I wanted to watch it, but because I needed to know how much it knew. The TV stayed black for maybe 15 seconds, long enough that I started to hope it had crashed. Then a new line appeared, clean text, centered, white, like it had been waiting for the right moment. One new viewer has joined. My neighbor cursed under his breath and backed away. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding again in that sick, irregular rhythm that felt too close to panic. New viewer? Who? There were only 2 people in the apartment, me and him, and neither of us had clicked anything. Neither of us had opened another device. Neither of us was streaming. And that's when a worse idea hit me. A new viewer didn't have to be someone in the room. Could be someone watching me, or someone watching this. So I need you to think about something. When exactly did you join? Did the story start autoplaying for you? Did the recommendation appear out of nowhere? Did the title pop up on your page in a list where it shouldn't be? I'm not saying it targeted you. I'm just saying I don't know how it chooses people. I don't know how many of us there are. That's why I'm ending this the way top cases end. Open, unresolved, honest. Because whatever episode 2 is going to be, I won't let it render without a fight. And if you're still here, if you're still listening, I want you to do one thing for me. Tell me if this has happened to you. Tell me if you've seen a glitch or a weird thumbnail or something that looked too much like your room or your hallway or your face. Tell me if your platform ever refreshed itself without your input. Tell me everything. I'm not asking for engagement. I'm asking because I need to know how far this has spread. Because if you see episode 0, if you see a visitor that looks like you, don't click it. Don't watch it. Don't acknowledge it. Some shows don't want an audience. They want a subject.